What's up, upstanders? Dr. O here. And just like I've seen with a lot of Republicans who have been working with the Trump administration, everybody talks about these Republicans are scared, they're going to be primaried, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I bought into that for a while, but last year, maybe getting closer to the election, it definitely became clear to me that it's not that these guys are scared, they're complicit. They're part of the plan to take over. It's not a thing of they're fearing primaries and all of this. They want the power, as little power as they're going to be able to get in their districts or in their counties or in their states. They want that power. Marco Rubio, they want that power. It's not a fear thing. It's not a fear thing anymore. And the same thing is true with these universities. Columbia University did not cave in to President Trump. Columbia University is complicit with what Trump wants to do. The new president or interim president Armstrong, they want an opportunity to be able to silence dissent and basically say that their arm is being pulled and able to do it. Why do I feel this way? Well, look what happened with Mahmoud Khalil and the other student as well. The university, these ICE folks couldn't be coming on campus and in these apartment buildings without the support of Columbia University behind that. And I haven't seen any. I haven't read every statement, but I haven't seen any statements from Columbia University in strong support of Mahmoud Khalil and talking about how he should be freed or anything like that. And then I'm looking at this letter that was sent to the university that from the Trump administration, with their demands saying you got to enforce existing disciplinary policies, right? And then it says this: primacy of the president in disciplinary matters. Abolish the University Judicial Board, or UJB, and centralize all disciplinary processes under the office of the president. So he wants Columbia University to do what he wants to do as president of the United States, and empower the officer of the president to suspend or expel students with an appeal process through the office of the president. Next, time, place, and manner rules. Implement permanent, comprehensive time, place, and manner rules to prevent disruption of teaching, research, and campus life. In this case, you haven't read the demands. Ban masks that are intended to conceal identity or intimidate others with exceptions for religious and health concerns. That's what they say now. But wait till some officers feel like somebody who's wearing a full hijab, and face covering, people feel like they're threatened, and watch that get removed, and watch nobody say anything about it in terms of nobody being the president of the United States or the president of the university, because all discipline works with them, stays with them. Must be held accountable through formal investigation. Deliver plans to hold all student groups accountable. Recognize student groups and individuals operating as constituent members of, providing support for unrecognized groups. Engage in violations of university policy. Must be held accountable through investigations, disciplinary proceedings, and expulsion as appropriate. Meaning, get rid of him, President. Formalize, adopt, and promulgate a definition of antisemitism, which Columbia University already has. President Trump's Executive Order 13899 uses the IHRA definition, anti quote unquote, they have quotes here, anti quote Zionist unquote is what it says. Discrimination against Jews in areas unrelated to Israel or Middle East must be addressed. This is interesting. Discrimination against Jews in areas unrelated to Israel or Middle East must be addressed. What about the ones that are related to that? That seems like it's tricky. It makes me think about, what about Jewish students who are involved in protests against what Israel is doing? It makes me wonder how they will be treated. Empower internal law enforcement. University must ensure that Columbia security has full law enforcement authority, including arrest and removal of agitators who foster an unsafe or hostile work or study environment, or otherwise interfere with classroom instruction of the functioning of the university. Now, this leads to the question of that we've had to deal with at American University as we've increased security, primarily due to threats against Jewish students, but student safety in general after October 7th. This is something that also can lead to racial profiling of black students and more hostility towards black students, especially if these guards are allowed to be armed. I remember the Parkland shooting in Florida. When that happened, there was a conversation about the need to have more armed guards, and the black students protested there because they knew that that was something that could lead to more problems for them. Messas Department, Academic Receivership. Begin the process of placing the Middle East, South Asian, and African Studies Department under academic receivership for a minimum of 5 years. The university must provide a full plan with dates, certain deliverables by the March 2025 deadline. So basically, They have to take over the department and do basically whatever the president says, president of the university or the president of the United States, if they don't like what they're doing. Deliver a plan for comprehensive admissions reform. The plan must include a strategy to reform undergraduate admissions, international recruiting, graduate admissions practices, and reform federal law policy. Basically, make sure you got no DEI in anything relating to your submissions. Here's the thing that makes me say that Columbia caved. They lost $400 million. Columbia University has a somewhere in the range of a $16 billion endowment. These other places like Harvard and other, 50 something billion dollars, other schools 40 something billion dollars. Dartmouth caved to somebody that they appointed, and they're like, they have the money to fight this. And I can guarantee you that if they chose to stand up and fight this, Columbia would have become more of a premier university destination for many students. But just like the Paul Weiss law firm, they chose to cave in with little to no fight. No see you in court. Like the governor, or was it Vermont, I believe, let me, correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, said, get rid of trans people, you're not going to get any federal funding. They just caved in because this is what they wanted to do. They have no problems with students getting arrested, and they have no problems with Trump using the false guise of anti-Semitism as a way to take over their university. And when I say the false guys, as you all know who've watched any of my videos, we know that student harassment against Jewish students has been real. We know that for you. You can't deny that. But what I also say is that there's also been harassment against Muslim students who have been assaulted and attacked and beaten as well. Having one of my own students come to me say in class at AU and say, hey, I'm ready to die. This puts a larger target on Jewish students' backs. Because the fact of the matter is, anytime there's a spike in something that a group is perceived as being a part of, violence or threats of violence or harassment is going to rise. So if you're singling out Jews, and you're saying even some of these in Department of Education, like only going to enforce the Civil Rights Act to enforce issues of anti-Semitism, like that singling out is going to draw more negative attention towards Jewish people, more attacks against people who are Muslim or quote unquote Arabic looking rose after 9/11. Rose after the Oklahoma City bombing, when many people thought that it was a Muslim terrorist who did that until they learned that it was an American terrorist by the name of Timothy McVeigh. It spikes. Look what happened against attacks against Asian people, in part because of Trump calling COVID the Kung flu and China virus and all that other type of stuff. There was a perception that Asian people in this country were responsible. Hate crimes rose against them. Run down the list. Run down the list. And so ultimately, in the long run, this is not going to help Jewish students. And it's I stand with the Jewish people who continually say, not in our name. Don't use anti-Semitism as a tool to become an authoritarian. Columbia is complicit in Trump's agenda. And other universities are doing the same thing. I believe Dartmouth has a former Trump official who's now their immigration counsel for student admission or something like that. University, run down the list. California's doing this. Run down the list. This is sad. These universities are caving. They are not even putting up a fight, just like some of these law firms. And in so many levels, Trump's going to these courts and losing some cases, but he's winning the overall narrative. And I appreciate university like Wesleyan and other places who are fighting back. And it's what's saddest about Columbia is that, again, they have the money to fight, at the very least in the short term. Some of these colleges with smaller platforms and smaller access to resources are fighting. Some of these attorneys look at people like Mark Elias. He doesn't have a Paul Weiss type law firm, but are fighting. It's really sad. I expected Trump to do everything he's done. I mean, certain things I didn't know was going to happen. I mean, I didn't read every letter of Project 2025, but I expect him to do everything he can to become an authoritarian. And when you hear people like, authoritarian scholar Ruth Ben-Ghiat talking about how authoritarians roll, she's like, I never expected it to happen this fast with Trump, because he's moving as if someone who actually took over a country militarily, like he's moving with that speed. He's being faster than Orban and Putin. Like, he's moving faster than them as it relates to taking over the universities and things like that. Because, as we say, there are no free thinking schools. There are no liberal arts colleges or universities in dictatorships. So if we want to start making a change and making these demands, we got to start calling these people out for what they are. These universities, these law firms, these politicians, they are not caving in, they are complicit. And we got to make sure that we continue to call it out. And as I often say, continue to call a thing a thing. It's shameful what Columbia has done and what some of these other universities are doing in caving. They're abandoning all of their students, and none of this is going to make Jewish students feel more safe. And we got to call it out. What do you think? Let me know. Peace.